Hello, and welcome to Rocket Fuel, your daily update of everything that's happening in the Rocket Pool and Ethereum ecosystems. My name is Wack. Today is June 9th, and today's episode is going to cover Rocket Pool Twitter account and the great things that are going on in there, Joe Lubin on Bankless. We're going to be talking about virtuals, which I've been talking a lot about on my Twitter, and I finally get to talk about it on Rocket Fuel, and a whole lot more as well. So let's get started.
10, 9, ignition sequence start. 6.
Okay, so the place to start today is the Rocket Pool Twitter account. Now, this was locked up for a long time and there was no activity there. And the reason why I'm talking about it today is because the account has actually been putting out some really, really cool content and really exciting content and stuff that I'm really happy to share about, to share and like talk about. So I figured that, I haven't really recorded an episode in a few weeks, and in that time the accounts really come to life, so it's worth just like showing some of the posts on there, not necessarily just to share the news that's in the post, but that too, but just talk about the really great work that the team is doing, and I guess Mav mostly is doing, getting this content out. So the kind of things that they've been talking about there is things like these DeFi opportunities for your RETH. This is the kind of stuff that the team just didn't share for so long, and they talked about this on the community calls and stuff. Is where the regulatory situation was such that they just couldn't kind of broach those topics, and that was because they were scared of like regulation. And now that things are changing, I guess they feel more comfortable just talking about the different parts of the Rocket Pool ecosystem, and that's including things like using our ETH in DeFi. And this is really cool. Like, one of the things that they want to do is be factually correct in terms of what they're sharing. So they're saying, Beefy Finance helps you aggregate over a dozen options via a convenient single interface, and there are countless opportunities available. But then they also disclaim that by saying DeFi can be risky and subject to losses, and there's volatility, blah blah blah. Do your own research and due diligence, etc. So they're covering themselves, but they're putting out this content. Like I said, there's been some really really good content coming out, like Rocket Pool joining the Balancer Alliance, becoming an Alliance member. Also things about flat money, which is really cool. This is highly decentralized LST that generates real staking rewards, makes RE the perfect DeFi building block. And then there's information there as well about flat money. Then there's information about the fee switch, which is so cool. So talking about fee switch coming for RPL, Saturn Upgrade will direct a portion of the protocol ETH revenue to staked RPL in a ratio that can be adjusted by the DAO to be responsive to market conditions. And then there's some information here from Sleety, and they've got an article about the Saturn upgrades and those that are coming. So yeah, there's a whole lot of really really cool updates here, and including the Ronin one that we talked about in yesterday's episode, but retweeting the content from Ronin and Liquidity, and just doing a really really good job of getting tweets out every day. And this one's about Saturn, getting the hype started for Saturn. And they said, and getting ready for Rocket Pool's biggest upgrade since launch, bringing a range of protocol improvements like for ETH validators, RPL free switch, mega pools, and more. And it says development work on Saturn 1 is nearing completion and audits are starting very soon. So people are very excited about when that's coming. It looks like we're looking at August or September, maybe something like that. That's just my guess, and though that date, of course, is subject to change. But yeah, this is a really really great content that's coming out from the Rocket Pool Twitter account. So if you don't follow the account, you should absolutely be following the account. But definitely, go check it out because they're sharing some really really good information there. So yeah, go check that out. Great shout out for the Rocket Pool Twitter account, and for the team for really stepping up their Twitter strategy. I think they're doing a really good job with that. Okay, let's move on to some Ethereum news now. And some of the exciting Ethereum news of the day is Joe Lubin on Bankless. So Joe Lubin came on to Bankless talking about SBET strategy and how this is going to work for Ethereum. And I have to admit, I haven't actually been able to listen to this episode yet, but it's something that I'm really excited about, and I think that is going to drive a lot of attention to Ethereum, and potentially a lot of positive price action to Ethereum as well if they can really get this flywheel going. So some of the things that this episode includes is consensus getting sued by the SEC, how Joe got involved with SBET, how he's becoming the Michael Saylor of Ethereum, and then how it's different. SBET is different from MicroStrategy, and then a whole lot of things about valuing ETH, Wall Street narratives, ETH performance, ETH as collateral, etc., etc. Yeah, a lot of positive feedback for this episode already. Like I said, I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet. I've been traveling. My crypto news intake has really come down quite a lot, but this is something that's really interesting, like a huge positive catalyst for Ethereum, and I'm interested to see how it's all going to play out. And Joe Lubin, of course, is one of the smartest guys in the space, so definitely worth listening to that episode there. Okay, next I want to talk about something that you all who follow me on Twitter probably know that I've been talking about constantly, and this is AI agents in the virtuals ecosystem. Now, I've kind of been trenching in the virtuals ecosystem since January, and something today happened that was really incredibly exciting from the perspective of Ethereum. Now, virtuals is pretty much the biggest platform on Base, and they're driving a lot of activity to Base. Like every day there's like thousands of transactions that happen on Base because of virtuals. And in January, I think just as the AI agent market was kind of slowing down a little bit, virtuals had like this, Hail Mary kind of attempt to revive their stalling market by starting launches on Solana. And I think at that time, the meme narrative, like pump fund narrative on Solana was still like quite hot. The Trump coin had just launched there, and there was stuff happening there that people were kind of like excited about, I guess. So virtuals trying to get traction on Solana worked a tiny bit. Like it did bring some attention to virtuals, but only a couple of agents launched there with any success, and then the whole AI agent market kind of took a nosedive. Virtuals a couple of months ago started a new system of launching AI tokens or agent tokens, and the idea has been extremely effective, and a lot of attention will come back to virtuals with some of the tokens launching at 100, 200, 300x gains for people who could get in on those early movements. Now, what's happened is that all of this activity has been taking place on Base, and none of it has been taking place on Solana, which is obviously the move that they made in January. But what's really interesting happened today is that virtuals have come out and said that they're now going to be launching agents on Ethereum mainnet. Now, this is absolutely awesome news, and they put out news of an agent that is going to be launching in 2 days' time called Iris, and this is the future of AI agents now on Ethereum. So that was the announcement that came out from them. Here, a couple of people from the virtuals team actually give a really good idea of what some thinking is happening, I think, in the wider DeFi space and in the crypto Web3 space about building on Ethereum. So Ethermage, I think, is the founder of virtuals. He says, had an interview with a research team commissioned by Ethereum Foundation to explore the L1 strategy. One of the most striking realizations I shared, I barely touched my L1 wallets in the past 2 years, maybe just to ape some Nero coins or farm Ethena. This was sharp contrast to 2021, when my gas fees were nearing 6 figures. And he says, one thing to reminisce about the glory days and another to drive new value forward. So he says, here's the update. We're opening support for agents launching on Ethereum L1, still AVM, but a whole different flavor of community and capital. To those building on ETH, welcome to the Agentic Society. So I think what's happening behind the scenes is that this new Ethereum Foundation that we've talked about so much on Rocket Fuel, what they're doing is they're reaching out to protocols on L2s and teams that are building on L2s and saying, hey, you're doing cool stuff on L2s, but come and work on L1 as well. L1 is changing. L1 is going to be the best place for you guys to be. And the virtuals token is actually an L1 token. It was issued on mainnet, and then it was bridged to Base, and most of its volume, almost all of its volume, actually happens on Base now. But It's actually an L1 token. I think this is the model that like we really need going forwards, is where all of these launches happen on L1, and then those tokens get bridged to L2s like base or whatever else, and then people can like use them there. But the core root of trust should be Ethereum layer 1, and now with some agents launching on the Ethereum layer 1, this is really really exciting. So here, another core contributor at Virtual's team said, why ETH mainnet, probably the most contrarian decisions we've made in a while. It's the highest TVL chain, but the least applications among the top chains. So there's white space, expensive gas fees. Turns out it's about $2 per swap, likely cheaper than using bots, all fees and MEVs. And it says, all reasoning is for the brain. The heart just tells you where to go. Virtuals is ETH. And they're saying that basically this is where they started and this is where they want to go. And what's really interesting is that the Ethereum Foundation, the Ethereum Twitter account actually reposted the Virtuals announcement saying Ethereum is for AI. Now, those of us in the Virtuals trenches are actually going kind of crazy about this launch. This token that's going to launch is called Iris, and it's actually based on software built out of the Nethermind team. And it's what their agentic or their AI tool for auditing smart contracts. And then the Virtuals team are going to launch this as an agent where you'll be able to share snippets of your code with the agent and ask it for feedback on like its security and its quality, basically code quality. So for a lot of reasons, like the Virtuals trenches are absolutely completely hyped for this launch. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see gas fees on mainnet actually spike quite considerably as people are interacting with this agent as it launches. It's very very bullish and very exciting. And I think that we're going to be talking about it quite a lot in the days to come. I'm not shilling the token, let me just be clear. What I'm sharing this news for is that there's teams out there who were doing things in L2s. They were thinking about bringing to Solana, and now there's clear evidence that they're actually coming to ETH layer 1, which is where we want everyone to be. So this is absolutely awesome stuff, like really really great, and I can't wait to start seeing other projects that are that had adopted either a multi-chain philosophy or an L2 only philosophy, and now they are saying, hey, we want to make Ethereum layer 1 our home, and then everything else can be built on top of that. So yeah, this is awesome. And over here, ETHMage talking to Ethereum Foundation directly, trying to come up with the strategy. I think that's really really cool to see. Okay, Nate Grassi here shared some interesting news a couple of days ago, and it was about the spot ETH ETFs. And I know I mentioned this in yesterday's kind of like recap episode, but I think it's really worth spending a couple of minutes just talking about this. So Nate says that there's been 15 straight days of inflows into spot ETH ETFs for a total of $820 million. So this category is now the highest cumulative inflow level since July 2024 launch, with $3.3 billion. So this is actually really, really amazing to see that there's been a switch, I think, that's happened in people investing into Ether in the ETFs, where they now are starting to see, I think, that there's a primacy here with ETH, and I think they think that it's going to outperform. And some of the things that are the reasons why this is happening is because of the sheer amount of attention that's coming onto Ethereum, and that is through a lot of the legislative stuff happening in the US, where there's the stablecoin stuff, and people are realizing that the only way to really get exposure to the stablecoin ecosystem is by buying ETH. That's how you get access to all the protocols that are built on top of ETH, kind of like as an index almost. And then that's like the fat protocol thesis, and then on top of that also there's this idea that with all this development happening on Ethereum, it should outperform all other crypto assets, which is what I'm kind of hoping and expecting in this next period, including Bitcoin, Solana, all the big L1s, everything else. with that outperformance happening, it makes sense to allocate to ETH, and it looks like that's happening more and more. So I know that I showed this yesterday as well, but it's just absolutely beautiful to see this chart. Let me just refresh it to see if we've got any more numbers for today. But again, it looks like we're going to be green again on June 9th, and that is really, really exciting to see for me. I'm expecting a nice, at least double-digit ETH inflows on the 9th. It would be absolutely awesome if we could get up to 3 digits. That would be really cool. Okay, and I put this into other news, but it's actually like really, really big news for Ethereum. And here the US SEC has put out a set of tweets about its guidance on DeFi. So this is points from Chairman Paul Atkins, who's like the new Gary Gensler. His remarks at the DeFi and the American Spirit Roundtable, which is the Crypto Task Force's roundtable on decentralized finance. So the thread, and what they're doing here is they're talking about how DeFi kind of embodies the American spirit, like these economic liberty, private property rights, and innovation, and how they are intertwined completely in DeFi and America. And they kind of chastise previous administration about people participating in the blockchain technology, and how these guys are going to change that. And there's a whole, like I said, there's a whole thread here of comments that you can read through. But here Cloucher says there ain't no way that the SEC is making threats about DeFi. Eric Connor here put out a huge thread about this as well, saying huge day for Ethereum and DeFi. The SEC's Chair Atkins just laid out his crypto vision and the clearest signal yet that DeFi is winning the regulatory argument. Here's why it matters. So he says DeFi embodies the American spirit, economic liberty, property rights, and the open innovation. He says that mining, validating, and staking as service are not securities transactions. No more hand waving. He wants this codified in rulemaking, not just internal guidance. And then defending self-custody, open source development, saying that DeFi protocols don't blow up like centralized finance protocols do or companies do. And then they're saying that the SEC wants the staff to draft rules so firms can legally plug into DeFi rails, enable on-chain issuance, settlement, and clearing, build a path to compliant self-custodial market infrastructure. And there's potential for an innovation exemption that could come. So, your protocol that you start might be kind of centralized to begin with, as long as there's a path towards decentralization. And this would give a fast track legal clarity for DeFi projects to launch and operate while new rules are finalized. Is massive luck for builders. So why is this important for Ethereum? Like I'm kind of mentioning it in the other news section, because it technically applies to all of crypto. But the reason why this is huge for Ethereum is because the vast majority of DeFi happens on Ethereum. And if you include the L2s on top of that, I think it's like, the high 70-80% DeFi activity happens on Ethereum. So this will just help Ethereum push that much harder and that much bigger and that much stronger. And I honestly feel like everything is just lining up for an absolutely amazing run for Ethereum, not just in terms of price action, of course, but I'm talking about like adoption in such a way that Ethereum gets entrenched into the global financial system for decades to come. That is what is at play here, is that if we, as the Ethereans, kind of play our cards right and work really well in the next couple of years, Ethereum will be too big to fail, basically, or too big to regulate in the way that the SEC next, SEC administrations might want to, and there just won't be anything they could do about it. Reaching that escape velocity, I think, is going to be so monumental that Ethereum is just going to be absolutely huge. So yeah, I'm incredibly excited. I think this is honestly, it's kind of flying under the radar, but this is truly monumental news for Ethereum, for DeFi, and it's one of the biggest things that, one of the biggest changes in direction, and one of the biggest changes in sentiment that has come about in the last many years, at least since the beginning of the Gensler administration at the SEC. This is just huge news. So yeah, everything about Ethereum right now is just screaming like incredibly bullish, and I am incredibly bullish Ethereum, and everything's coming back to Ethereum. Projects are coming back to Ethereum to build on Ethereum again. DeFi is on Ethereum, stablecoins are on Ethereum, real world assets are on Ethereum, everything is on Ethereum, and I think that if you are fading Ethereum, you're going to get burned really badly, and I will celebrate that so much. So, on that note, I'm going to end today's episode. So, thank you all for watching, listening, and being part of the Rocket Fuel community. I hope you all have a lovely day ahead. I hope you're all feeling bullish things about Ethereum and Rocket Pool, hopefully too. And I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.